Welcome to another episode of Stories from the Edge of Life. We once again have Lisa White to share her wisdom with us. Hi, Lisa.
Good morning. How are you?
Great. And by the way, I always forget to introduce myself. I'm Parag Bharadwaj. I'm a palliative physician. I always get so excited introducing the guests. Often I'm told, "Hey, Parag, you forgot to introduce yourself." So I'm glad I was able to complete that formality. So how are things with you, Lisa?
Things are going well. Thank you for asking. How about
All
yourself?
right. Things are great. Thank you.
Good.
So, share with us a little bit more about a glimpse of the world that you've experienced
Okay.
and just inspire us with your stories.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, I just wanted to talk about one of the values that social work has. It's empowerment, and that's very important in this type of work because the goal for me has been to help patients know and understand the options that exist. They speak to the physician, the physicians involved, and the whole medical team, and the nurse practitioner from palliative care, and all the people involved. And so helping them process the information, process their feelings, and make an informed decision is the goal for the patients and families. And so sometimes patients make decisions or choices that appear to be questionable to those observing. However, I think it's important to recognize that people have the option to make decisions that appear to be poor decisions, but ultimately it's their life and the lives of their loved ones. And so I have a few examples of patients who have made some choices and been satisfied with the outcomes. Okay. I have one example of a person who had chronic conditions throughout their lifetime. And they were told when they came this particular time that perhaps they should make some different choices going forward. And the question always can include quality of life, meaning how are you living your best life with your medical condition? And what does that look like to you? And it looks like different things to different people. So this particular patient said to me, this is my life. It may not seem like much to other people, but it's what I have and it's important to me. I value it. And so that's how I'm going to proceed. I am choosing to continue with aggressive treatment to preserve the life that I do have. And that gave me pause because they were defining their own reality and their own definition of what quality of life looked like to them. And from an observer, it seemed to be difficult and maybe not the best way to proceed, but the patient valued their life. And it didn't look like other people's, but it was important to them. So I supported them in that, and I thank them for sharing that perspective with me.
Very powerful. And it's interesting you use the word empowerment in the context of a patient because,
Mhm,
I always feel like when a patient is in the hospital
mhm,
or in any other setting, they are compromised
mhm,
because they're speaking to an audience that is not going through the experience that they're going through, and
mhm.
like you said, they understand it best. So
Yes.
uh, often we project our biases and assumptions on them and what decisions they should make. But
Mhm.
like you highlighted with that patient, at the end of the day, it's their life and it's their
Yes,
call
it is.
and what they
Right,
value, right?
exactly. I have another situation that was different. One thing that we do, along with other members of the team, the medical team in general, is help people with their advanced care plans or their medical directives. And that's an interesting process. It's very important. And people tend to avoid doing it because for various reasons. Many people don't want to think about their mortality and they just put it off, and they don't want to upset other people. And so they just don't do it. And so when I've been able to help people with that, we can get it done in about a half an hour or less, and it's done, and they can get on with their lives. And so part of it has to do with, in addition to choosing a primary and secondary decision maker, medical power of attorney, they also get an opportunity to talk about the types of treatment that they would like in the event of a serious situation. And it's interesting to think about. So we explain, and I say we, the nurse practitioner and I explain some of the issues that could arise medically, and they make choices. And so a particular patient was in the ICU, and it was looking tenuous, her situation. And so she was advised to take an approach that she didn't agree with. And so she decided to continue to get life-sustaining treatment in the event of an emergency, despite the possibility of being in needing care indefinitely. And so we talked about it, and that's what she wanted. So as it turned out, she did indeed have a situation that resulted in her being on a ventilator, and the person who she had selected to make decisions was stood by her decisions, even though it didn't seem to be the appropriate thing to do in her situation. They stood by the decision that the patient had made. And some time passed, and a few days, and it still didn't look like there was going to be a change. And as it turned out, she no longer she no longer needed to be on a ventilator, and she was alert and speaking, and said to the person, her medical power of attorney, she thanked them for honoring her wishes. And she went on to get additional treatment in a long-term care facility, and they were both satisfied with the outcome. So she was adamant about what she wanted, and the person she had selected stood by her wishes.
Yeah, I'm glad she had a conversation with her loved one
Mhm.
in terms of what she would want. Now, what are some of the hesitations that you've seen patients have in terms of having these discussions with their loved ones? Or the same thing with the loved ones, right? They don't want to have these discussions about the patient because one of the things I've heard is that some people feel like if we talk about these things, then we are going to bring them upon ourselves.
Right.
Have you, so how do you navigate that, and how and what are the hurdles that you have seen come in the way of having these conversations?
It's really interesting I've participated in advanced care plan fairs during which we would stand in the lobby or near the cafeteria and talk to whoever came by. It would be staff, it would be visitors, it'd be contractors. We didn't know. And we would just ask, do you have an advanced care plan? And so many of the people would say, oh, yes, I have 3 of them at home. I haven't done it yet. And so I would say to patients when talking to them about it, I would say, you know, I can help you do this, and it can be done in a very short amount of time. 20, 30 minutes, we can get it done or less. And so if I give this to you and you take it home and look at it, there's a very good chance that it'll end up in a pile, like on top of your file cabinet or whatever your catch-all space is at home. So let's do it. And so the reluctance is, like you said, they don't want to face their own mortality. They think that if they do this, I don't know if they'll hasten the process or just they don't want to. I don't think they just don't want to face it. And I tell them, this doesn't mean that death is imminent at all. Everyone over the age of 18 and over should have one. Things happen, and it's just something that you do as part of being an adult. So you just happen to be here in the hospital, and we have an opportunity to help you with it now. And so when we get started, it amazes me, particularly for couples who've been together for many years, they're surprised by each other's responses. And they have no idea what the person would or wouldn't want. And the best, the people who've made who've thought about it most are people who have been the family members and had family who have been in critical medical situations. And so they know, I do or I don't want to be on a ventilator. I do or I don't want to be resuscitated, based on their experiences or their experiences of their experiences with their loved ones. They know what they want or not. But it's other people who just haven't interfaced often with the medical community. And they'll say things like, do whatever you can. I don't care what the situation is, which on the surface seems to make sense. But when you delve a little deeper, there's situations where that might not be in their best interest. And so explaining those things to them helps. And we also talk about how it helps their loved ones. So if they're in the situation, that they won't feel angst, they won't feel guilt. If you've made some choices, it'll make it easier for them. It'll be in black and white. It'll help them when they interact with other family members who don't understand the patient's wishes. If it's in writing, there it is, you signed it. This is what they said they wanted. So when they look at it from that perspective, sometimes that helps them to move forward.
You're absolutely right. And having these conversations are some of the best gifts patients can give to their loved ones.
Yes.
So that, if they find themselves in a situation where they need to make these critical decisions, they know exactly what to do. Because I'm sure you've come across this as well. We've seen situations where things have not worked out in the patient's favor, where the patient has not had the conversation.
Yes.
Somebody had to make decisions on behalf of the patient. And after the medical intervention, when the patient wakes up and, asks their loved one, what have you done to me?
Yeah,
that's not good for the patient. That's not good for their family members.
Exactly.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll have our audience listen to our video session, and
Mhm.
hopefully it will encourage them to have conversations with their loved ones. And once
Yes.
go ahead.
And I also want people to know that you have an opportunity to change your mind at a later point in time. And even if you want further discussion, as long as you select someone to speak on your behalf, that's most important, because at least you'll have the persons that you want to, the medical community to speak with, designated. And so that's very important. And you can have further discussion and come back and complete it. Or there's the option, it depends on the situation, speak to my medical powers of attorney. And so you don't have to make every decision. The most important ones are just making sure that you select the people.
Got it. Well, I really appreciate you spending your time with us, Lisa, once again. And we
Thank
look
you.
forward to seeing you again.
Thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks a lot.
Did you like this story? If so, please subscribe to this channel and like and share the video. Want more? Buy the book, Stories from the Edge of Life, available now on Amazon for more stories like this. All proceeds support Palliative Care Network, a nonprofit dedicated to alleviating suffering and improving the quality of life for patients facing end-of-life issues. Consider extending your contribution by donating through the link below. Thank you for your support.